The weird find. The two alien girls, Dua and Zara, walked slowly through the ruins of old Earth. The planet was very different now. Where there were once big cities, now there were only broken buildings and lots of plants growing everywhere. The girls had blue skin and big, curious eyes. They looked around with wonder. "Zara, look at this," Dua said, pointing at something shiny on the ground. She picked up an old metal thing. It was round and had numbers on it. "I think it's what did they call it? A watch." Zara came closer to look. "Wow, it still works," she said as the little hands on the watch moved. Humans were so strange. Why did they need to know the time all the time? The girls laughed and kept walking. They were part of a team sent to study old Earth. It had been 800,000 years since humans lived here. No one knew what happened to them. It was a big mystery that Dua and Zara wanted to solve. As they walked, they saw many strange things. There were old cars covered in rust, tall buildings that were falling down, and roads that were now just cracks in the ground. Everything was covered in green plants and vines. "I wish we could have met the humans," Zara said with a sigh. "They made such cool things." Dua nodded. "Yeah, but remember what our teachers said. Humans were dangerous. They fought a lot and hurt their planet." Suddenly, Zara stopped walking. "Dua, look over there," she whispered, pointing at a hill nearby. There was something odd about it. Part of the hill looked different from the rest. The girls went closer to check it out. As they got near, they saw that part of the hill wasn't a hill at all. It was made of metal. "It's a door," Dua said, getting excited. A big metal door hidden in the hill. They'd brushed away some dirt and plants. The door was huge, at least 3 times taller than them. It had weird symbols on it that the girls couldn't read. "Should we try to open it?" Zara asked, looking a bit scared. Dua thought for a moment. "We should call the others," she said, but just as she was about to use her communicator, she leaned on the door. There was a loud beep. The ground started to shake. The girls held onto each other, afraid. With a loud hiss, the big door slowly started to open. "What did you do?" Zara asked, her eyes wide. I don't know," Dua said. "I just touched it." As the door opened all the way, they saw a dark room inside. It was filled with blinking lights and strange machines. Cool air came out of the room, making the girls shiver. "Wow," they both said at the same time. Dua took out a light from her bag and shined it inside. The room was bigger than they thought. There were lots of computers and screens on the walls. Everything looked very old, but somehow still worked. "Look at all this stuff," Zara said, walking inside slowly. "The humans must have built this place. But why? And why did they hide it?" Dua followed her friend, looking at everything with wide eyes. "Maybe it was a secret place," she said, "like in those old human stories we read about." As they walked deeper into the room, they saw something in the middle. It was a big glass box, like a huge fish tank. But instead of water, it was full of a misty gas. And inside, "Is that a person?" Zara asked, her voice shaking a little. They got closer to the glass box. Inside, they could see the shape of someone lying down. The person wasn't moving. "It can't be," Dua said. "Humans have been gone for 800,000 years. How could one be here?" Just then, the box started to make noise. Lights on it began to blink fast. The misty gas inside started to move around. The girls stepped back, scared but also curious. They watched as the gas in the box started to clear. And then they saw her clearly. A human girl with pale skin and dark hair. Her eyes were closed. "She looks like she's sleeping," Zora whispered. Suddenly, the human girl's eyes opened wide. She sat up fast, looking around with a scared and confused face. When she saw Dua and Zara, her mouth opened in shock. The girls didn't know what to do. They had just found something amazing. A real, living human. But what would happen next? They had so many questions. Who was this girl? Why was she in this hidden place? And what would she think of the world now, 800,000 years in the future? Dua and Zara looked at each other, then back at the human girl. Their big adventure was just beginning. Sleeping Beauty wakes up. Dua and Zara stood frozen, staring at the human girl in the glass box. They had never seen a real human before. The girl looked back at them, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Suddenly, the glass box started to open. There was a hissing sound, and more misty gas came out. The human girl began to cough and shake. "Should we help her?" Zara whispered to Dua. Before Dua could answer, the girl tried to stand up, but her legs were weak, and she fell out of the box. Dua and Zara quickly ran to catch her. "Careful," Dua said, holding the girl's arm. The human skin felt warm and soft, very different from their own. The girl looked at them, still coughing. Who are you?" she asked in a weak voice. "What are you?" Zara and Dua looked at each other, surprised. They could understand her. "I'm Zara, and this is Dua," Zara said slowly. We're not human. We're from another planet." The girl's eyes got even wider. "Aliens. But that's impossible." She tried to move away but was too weak. "It's okay," Dua said in a soft voice. "We won't hurt you. What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then said, "Area. My name is Area." She looked around the room, confused. "Where am I? What happened?" Dua and Zara helped Area sit on the floor. They didn't know how to tell her about Earth, about how much time had passed. "Area," Dua said gently, "what's the last thing you remember?" Area closed her eyes, thinking hard. "There was a war. Big ships in the sky. Everyone was scared. My parents brought me here. They said I would be safe." She opened her eyes, looking worried. "Where are my parents? Where is everyone?" Zara took a deep breath. "Area, we don't know how to say this, but you've been asleep for a very long time." "How long?" Area asked, her voice shaking. Dua and Zara looked at each other again. Then Dua said, "About 800,000 years." Area's face went pale. She shook her head. "No, that's not possible. You're joking, right?" But she could see from their faces that they weren't joking. Tears started to fall from Area's eyes. Dua and Zara didn't know what to do. They had never seen a human cry before. "I'm sorry," Zara said, patting Area's hand. "We just found this place. We don't know what happened to the other humans." Area wiped her eyes, trying to be brave. "So, I'm the only one left. The only human." "We think so," Dua said. "Earth is very different now. There are no big cities anymore, just lots of plants and animals." Area stood up slowly, her legs a bit stronger now. She walked to one of the computer screens on the wall. It was still working, showing strange symbols and numbers. "This was a special place," Area said, touching the screen. "A safe place for important people, in case something bad happened to Earth." She turned to look at Dua and Zora. "I guess something bad did happen." Just then, they heard a loud beep. One of the big machines in the room started to move. A drawer opened, and inside was a small silver box. Area walked over and picked up the box. "It's for me," she said, looking at a name on top. She opened it carefully. Inside was a small computer chip and a note. Area read the note out loud. "Dear Area, if you're reading this, it means we couldn't wake you up ourselves. We hope whoever finds you is kind. Remember, you carry the memories and knowledge of Earth. Use it wisely. We love you always. Mom and Dad." Area held the chip tightly, more tears falling. Dua and Zara felt sad for her, but also curious. "What's on the chip?" Zara asked. Area looked at the chip, then at the aliens. I think it's everything. All of Earth's history, all our knowledge. Everything humans learned and did. She put the chip in her pocket carefully. I have to keep it safe. Dua nodded. We'll help you. But first, are you hungry? Thirsty? We have food and water in our ship. Aria's stomach made a loud noise, and she laughed a little. I guess I am hungry. 800,000 years is a long time without food. As they walked out of the hidden room, Aria looked back one last time. She was leaving her old life behind. Everything and everyone she knew was gone. But she wasn't alone. She had 2 new alien friends and a whole new world to discover. Dua and Zara led Aria out into the sunlight. Aria's eyes took a moment to adjust. The world outside was so green, so wild. It was Earth, but not the Earth she knew. Welcome to the future, Aria, Zara said with a smile. Aria took a deep breath of the fresh air. She was scared, but also a little excited. A whole new adventure was just beginning. New friends, old stories. Aria, Dua, and Zara sat in a small clearing near the hidden bunker. The alien girls had brought out some food and water from their ship. Aria looked at the strange, colorful fruits with curiosity. It's safe for you to eat, Dua said, handing Aria a purple fruit. We checked it with our scanner. Aria took a small bite. Her eyes widened in surprise. It's good. It tastes like a mix of strawberry and banana. Zara smiled. We call it a swowberry. It grows all over the planet now. As they ate, Aria looked around at the wild, overgrown Earth. It was so different from the world she remembered. So what happened to all the cities? The big buildings? Dua pointed to some distant ruins. Most of them fell down over time. Plants grew over everything. The Earth healed itself. Aria nodded slowly, trying to understand. Then she looked at her new alien friends with curiosity. Can you tell me about your people? Where do you come from? Zara's eyes lit up. We're from a planet called Zephyria. It's about 50 light years from here. She used her hands to show the distance. We discovered Earth about 100 years ago and started studying it. What's Zephyria like? Aria asked, leaning forward with interest. Dua smiled. It's beautiful. We have 2 suns and 3 moons. The sky is always changing colors. And we have floating cities. Zara added excitedly. Big platforms that float in the air, connected by light bridges. Aria's mouth fell open. Wow. That sounds amazing. I'd love to see it someday. The alien girls nodded. Maybe you can, Dua said. But first, can you tell us about old Earth? About your life before? Aria's face became a little sad, but she nodded. Well, I was 16 when I went to sleep. I lived in a city called New York. It was huge, with tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. Like the ruins we see? Zara asked. Yes, but bigger and shinier, Aria explained. And there were millions of people everywhere. Cars on the roads, trains underground, even flying cars in the air. Dua and Zara listened with wide eyes. They had read about old Earth, but hearing about it from someone who lived there was different. What about your family? Dua asked gently. Aria smiled, remembering. My mom was a scientist. She studied ways to make clean energy. My dad was an artist. He painted beautiful pictures. Her voice became softer. They were the ones who put me in the sleep chamber, to keep me safe. They must have loved you very much, Zara said, putting her hand on Aria's arm. Aria nodded, wiping a tear from her eye. They did. I miss them. There was a moment of silence. Then Dua asked, what about fun things? What did you do for fun? Aria's face brightened. Oh, lots of things. We had virtual reality games where you could be anyone or go anywhere. And movies, stories that played on big screens. Oh, and music. We had amazing music. We have music too, Zara said excitedly. Want to hear some? She took out a small device and pressed a button. Strange, beautiful sounds filled the air. It was like nothing Aria had ever heard before. That's incredible, Arya said, closing her eyes to listen. It's so alien. She laughed at her own joke. The three girls spent hours talking, sharing stories about their worlds. Arya told them about pizza and roller coasters and the internet. Dua and Zara told her about their school on a space station and the many alien species they had met. As the day went on, Arya felt less alone. Yes, she had lost everything she knew. But she had also gained something new, friends who were literally out of this world. You know, Arya said, looking at the chip her parents had left her, I have all of Earth's history and knowledge here. Maybe we could learn from each other. You could teach me about your world, and I could teach you about mine. Dua and Zara looked at each other, then back at Arya with big smiles. We'd love that, they said together. Suddenly, there was a beeping sound. Dua looked at a device on her wrist. Oh, it's our team. They're wondering where we are. Arya felt a moment of panic. What will they do when they find out about me? Zora put her hand on Arya's shoulder. Don't worry. Our people are kind. They'll want to help you and learn from you. Dua nodded. Yeah, you're like the biggest discovery in 800,000 years. Arya took a deep breath. She was nervous but also excited. Okay, she said. I'm ready to meet more aliens. But can we get some more of those strawberries first? They're really good. The three girls laughed together. As they walked towards the alien ship, Arya felt something she hadn't felt since waking up. Hope. She had lost one world, but found a whole universe of new possibilities. Mystery of the past. Arya, Dua, and Zara stood in front of a large alien spaceship. It was sleek and silver, nothing like the spaceships Arya had seen in old movies. Several other aliens, all blue-skinned like Dua and Zara, were walking towards them. Don't worry, Zara whispered to Arya. Our team leader, Professor Xan, is very nice. A tall alien with bright purple eyes stepped forward. Dua, Zara, where have you been? And who is this? He looked at Arya with surprise. Dua took a deep breath. Professor Xan, this is Arya. She's a human. Professor Xan's eyes widened. Impossible. Humans have been extinct for 800,000 years. Arya stepped forward bravely. It's true, sir. I was in a Cryo sleep chamber. Dua and Zara found me and woke me up. For a moment, there was silence. Then Professor Xan's face broke into a big smile. This is amazing. The greatest discovery in the history of our research. The next few hours were a blur for Arya. The alien scientists asked her many questions and scanned her with strange devices. They were all very excited and kind, but Arya felt overwhelmed. Finally, Professor Xan noticed how tired Arya looked. Enough for now, he said. Let's all get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll go back to the bunker and investigate further. The next morning, Arya, Dua, Zara, and Professor Xan returned to the hidden bunker. The other scientists spread out to study the ruins nearby. Inside the bunker, Professor Xan looked at the old computers with wonder. Incredible, he muttered. Some of these are still working after all this time. Arya walked up to one of the screens. It was flashing with a message. Warning. Access code required. Can you read that? Dua asked. Arya nodded. It's asking for a code to access some files. Professor Xan looked excited. Can you try to open it? These files might tell us what happened to Earth. Arya thought hard. What code would her parents have used? Then she remembered something. Let me try this, she said, and typed in her birthday. The screen blinked, and suddenly it was full of information. Maps, reports, and video files appeared. You did it, Zara cheered. They all gathered around the screen. Arya started to read out loud. Final report on Operation Stardust. Earth's last defense against the Void Eaters. Void Eaters? Professor Xan asked, looking confused. Arya shook her head. I don't know. I've never heard of them. She continued reading. The Void Eaters, an ancient alien race, have destroyed multiple galaxies. They are now approaching Earth. Our weapons are useless against them. Everyone listened in silence as Area read on. The report talked about a last-ditch plan to save humanity. They would send special ships into space, carrying millions of people in cryo sleep. The people left on Earth would try to fight the Void Eaters and buy time for the ships to escape. So that's why I was put to sleep, Area said softly. But why didn't they wake me up? Why didn't the ships come back? Zara put her hand on Area's shoulder. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe it wasn't safe. Professor Xan was looking at a star map on another screen. According to this, the ships were heading towards a galaxy we call the Crimson Nebula. It's very far from here. Could some humans have survived there? Dua asked hopefully. Professor Xan nodded slowly. It's possible. The Crimson Nebula is unexplored. It's too far for our current technology to reach. Area felt a mix of emotions. Hope that some humans might still be out there, sadness for those left behind, and fear about these Void Eaters. Professor, she said, have you ever heard of the Void Eaters in your studies? Professor Xan shook his head. Never. But there are many mysteries in the universe. Perhaps they're still out there, or perhaps they're gone like the humans of Earth. Just then, one of the screens started to beep loudly. A video file was trying to play. Should we watch it? Zara asked nervously. Area nodded and pressed play. The screen showed a man and woman, Area's parents. Mom, Dad, Area cried out. The woman on the screen spoke. Area, if you're seeing this, it means you've woken up in a very different world. We're so sorry we couldn't be there with you. Know that we love you more than anything. The man continued. The Void Eaters are coming. We're sending you to sleep to keep you safe. With you, we've hidden Earth's most important knowledge. Use it wisely. And Area, remember, humanity's strength was never in our weapons, but in our hearts and minds. Whatever future you find yourself in, we know you'll make us proud. The video ended, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Area wiped tears from her eyes. Professor Xan spoke softly. Area, your parents were very brave. They saved you and gave you the tools to maybe save others. Area stood up straighter, feeling a new sense of purpose. You're right, and I think I know what we need to do next. Everyone looked at her curiously. We need to find out more about these Void Eaters, Area said. And we need to try to contact the Crimson Nebula. My people might still be out there, and they might need help. Dua and Zara nodded excitedly. Professor Xan looked thoughtful. It won't be easy, he said. But you're right. This mystery of the past might be the key to the future. We'll help you, Area. As they left the bunker, Area took one last look at the screen with her parents' faces. She made a silent promise to them. She would solve this mystery, and she would make them proud. The adventure was just beginning. Danger returns. Weeks had passed since Area's awakening. She was now living on the alien spaceship, learning about the new world, and teaching the aliens about old Earth. Dua and Zara had become her best friends, always by her side. One day, Area was in the ship's library, looking at star maps with Professor Xan. They were trying to find the best way to reach the Crimson Nebula. It's so far, Area said with a sigh. Will we ever be able to get there? Professor Xan patted her shoulder. Don't lose hope, Area. Our scientists are working on a new engine that might. Suddenly, loud alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. What's happening? Area shouted over the noise. Professor Xan's face went pale. It's an alert. Something's entering Earth's atmosphere. They ran to the ship's control room. Dua and Zara were already there, looking scared. Look! Zara pointed at a big screen. Area's heart nearly stopped. In the sky, there was a huge, dark shape. It looked like a black hole with tentacles coming out of it. It was exactly like the pictures she had seen of the Void Eaters in the old bunker files. No, Area whispered. It can't be. Professor Xon was shouting orders. Prepare for emergency takeoff. We need to get out of here. But Arya couldn't move. She was remembering her parents' last message. Wait, she cried out. We can't just leave. There might be a way to stop them. Everyone turned to look at her. Arya, that thing will destroy us all if we stay, Dua said, her voice shaking. No, listen, Arya said quickly. In the bunker, there was information about a secret weapon. Something hidden on the moon. We have to try to find it. Professor Xon looked torn. It's too dangerous. We don't even know if this weapon exists. Just then, the ship shook violently. Outside, they could see strange, dark energy beams shooting from the Void Eater, destroying everything they touched. Zora looked at the screens. Our shields won't hold for long. Arya made a decision. She ran to a small ship docked inside the bigger one. I'm going to the moon. Who's with me? For a moment, no one moved. Then Dua and Zara ran to join her. We're coming too, they said together. Professor Xon sighed. You're all crazy, but you might be our only hope. Go. We'll try to distract that thing. The three girls quickly got into the small ship. Arya sat at the controls, remembering her pilot training from 800,000 years ago. Do you know how to fly this? Dua asked nervously. Arya grinned. Let's find out. She pressed some buttons, and the ship roared to life. They shot out of the bigger ship and into the sky. The Void Eater noticed them. Dark tentacles of energy reached out, trying to grab them. Hold on, Arya yelled. She twisted the ship around, dodging the attacks. Zora looked at a screen. The moon is straight ahead, but how will we find this weapon? Arya thought hard. Then she remembered something. She pulled out the chip her parents had given her and plugged it into the ship's computer. Please work, she muttered. Suddenly, a map appeared on the screen. It showed a secret base hidden inside a moon crater. That's it, Arya shouted happily. We found it. But their happiness was short-lived. A massive energy beam from the Void Eater hit their ship's wing. We're hit, Dua cried out. We're going to crash. The moon's surface was coming up fast. Arya pulled on the controls with all her strength, trying to slow their fall. Brace for impact, she yelled. With a loud crash, the ship hit the moon's surface. It skidded along, throwing up moon dust, before finally coming to a stop at the edge of a huge crater. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then Arya heard Dua and Zora groan. Is everyone okay? Arya asked, her head spinning. I think so, Zora said, rubbing her arm. But the ship is destroyed. They climbed out of the wreckage and looked around. The earth hung in the sky, beautiful but now partly covered by the dark shape of the Void Eater. We have to hurry, Arya said. The base should be in this crater. They started to walk, bouncing a little in the low gravity. It was hard to move fast. Suddenly, Dua pointed ahead. Look, there's a door in the crater wall. They ran, as much as you can run on the moon, to the door. There was a keypad next to it. Arya took a deep breath and typed in her birthday, just like in the bunker. With a hiss, the door slid open. Inside, they found a room full of old machines. In the center was a big, strange-looking gun. This must be it, Arya said, the weapon to stop the Void Eaters. But as they approached it, they realized something terrible. The gun was broken. Parts of it were missing or damaged. No, Arya cried out. It can't end like this. There has to be a way. Dua put her hand on Arya's shoulder. Maybe we can fix it. You have Earth's knowledge, and we have alien tech. Together, we might be able to make it work. Arya looked at her friends, then at the broken weapon. She nodded, a determined look in her eyes. You're right. We can do this. We have to do this. For Earth, for my parents, for everyone. As they started to work on the weapon, they could hear the sounds of battle outside. The fate of the Earth, maybe even the galaxy, was in their hands. The race against time had begun. Moon Adventure, Area, Dua, and Zara stood in the old moon base, staring at the broken weapon. They could hear the sounds of battle outside as the alien ships fought against the Void Eater. "Okay," Area said, taking a deep breath. "We can fix this. We have to." Zara looked at the weapon closely. "It looks like it's missing a power source," she said. Dua nodded. "And some of these wires are damaged. We need to replace them." Area pulled out the chip her parents had given her. "Let's see if this has any information that can help us." She plugged the chip into a nearby computer. Suddenly, a hologram of Aria's mother appeared. "Mom," Aria gasped. The hologram spoke. "If you're seeing this, Aria, it means you've found the moon base. The weapon is Earth's last hope against the Void Eaters. To power it, you need 3 special crystals hidden in the base. Good luck, sweetheart. We believe in you." The hologram disappeared. Aria wiped a tear from her eye. 3 crystals, Dua said. "Where do we start looking?" Just then, they heard a loud rumble. The whole base shook. "The Void Eater must be attacking the moon," Zora cried. Aria looked around quickly. "We need to split up. We'll each look for 1 crystal. It's the only way we'll have enough time." Her friends nodded. They were scared, but determined. "Be careful," Aria said. Then they each ran down a different corridor. Aria found herself in a room full of old spacesuits. On the far wall, she saw a faint glow coming from behind a loose panel. "The first crystal," she said excitedly. But as she reached for it, the floor beneath her feet began to crack. Meanwhile, Dua was in what looked like an old laboratory. Strange machines blinked and hummed around her. On a high shelf, she spotted something sparkling. That must be the second crystal, she thought. But as she climbed up to reach it, one of the machines started to spark dangerously. Zara had entered a large, dark room. Her eyes widened as she realized what it was. A garden. She whispered in surprise. In the center, a small tree was growing, and hanging from one of its branches was the 3rd crystal. But as Zara approached the tree, she heard a low growl. Something was moving in the shadows. Back in the suit room, Aria jumped for the crystal just as the floor gave way. She caught the edge of the hole with one hand, the crystal clutched tightly in the other. "Help," she yelled, hoping her friends could hear her. In the lab, Dua had almost reached the crystal when the sparking machine exploded. She dove for cover, knocking over shelves as she went. And in the garden, Zara froze as a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. A creature she had never seen before stepped into the light. It looked like a mix between a lion and a bear, but with silver fur. "Nice moon animal," Zara said nervously, slowly reaching for the crystal. Suddenly, they all heard Aria's cry for help echoing through the base. Dua, who had just grabbed her crystal from the mess of the lab, ran towards the sound. She found Aria hanging from the hole and quickly pulled her up. "Thanks," Aria panted. "Did you get your crystal?" Dua nodded, showing it to her. "But where's Zora?" They heard a scream from the direction of the garden. Running as fast as they could in the low gravity, they burst into the room to find Zora backed up against the tree, the moon creature growling at her. "Zora," Ariad yelled. "The crystal." Zora looked up, saw the crystal right above her head, and jumped. She grabbed it just as the creature pounced. But instead of attacking, the creature stopped and bowed its head. The tree began to glow, and suddenly, the whole room was filled with beautiful, sparkling light. "I think," Zara said in awe, "it was protecting the crystal. And now it knows we're here to help." The 3 girls looked at each other, then at the crystals in their hands. They had done it. They rushed back to the main room with the weapon. Carefully, they placed the crystals in 3 slots on the gun. The weapon hummed to life, glowing with energy. "It's working," Dua said excitedly. But their joy was short-lived. The base shook again, harder this time. Cracks appeared in the walls and ceiling. "The Void Eater is breaking through," Zara shouted. Arya grabbed the weapon. It was heavy, but the moon's low gravity helped. We need to get outside and fire it, she said. It's our only chance. They ran for the exit, the base crumbling around them. The moon creature appeared and led them through a shortcut, helping them escape just as the roof caved in. Outside, they saw the Void Eater looming above them, its dark tentacles reaching down towards the moon's surface. Arya aimed the weapon, her friends supporting her on either side. For Earth, she whispered. For everyone. She pulled the trigger. A beam of brilliant white light shot out, streaking towards the Void Eater. As the beam hit its target, the sky lit up brighter than 1,000 suns. The girls shielded their eyes, hoping against hope that their plan had worked. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Heroes win. The bright light from the weapon faded slowly. Arya, Dua, and Zara blinked, trying to see what had happened. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then they saw it. The Void Eater was still there, but it looked different. Its dark tentacles were shrinking, pulling back into the main body. Did it work? Dua asked, her voice shaking. Suddenly, the Void Eater let out a loud, strange noise. It sounded like a mix between a scream and a song. The girls covered their ears. Look, Zara shouted, pointing at the sky. The Void Eater was changing. Its black color was fading, replaced by swirls of bright colors, blues, purples, and greens. It was beautiful. I don't believe it, Arya whispered. We didn't destroy it. We healed it. The creature that was once the Void Eater started to move, but instead of attacking, it began to float away from Earth, back into space. Just then, they heard a familiar voice crackling through their communication devices. It was Professor Xan. Girls, are you all right? What happened? The Void Eater, it's leaving. Arya laughed, feeling relief wash over her. We're okay, Professor. We did it. The weapon worked, but not how we expected. I think we fixed the Void Eater somehow. They could hear cheering in the background as Professor Xan spoke. Incredible. You've saved us all. We're coming to pick you up now. As they waited for the rescue ship, the girls sat down on the moon's surface, looking up at the Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful now. We really did it, Dua said, still sounding amazed. Zara nodded. Yeah, but what exactly did we do? How did the weapon heal the Void Eater instead of destroying it? Arya thought for a moment. Then she remembered something her mother had said in the old message. Humanity's strength was never in our weapons, but in our hearts and minds. I think I understand now, Arya said. The weapon wasn't designed to destroy. It was made to heal, to fix whatever made the Void Eaters so dangerous in the first place. Her friends looked at her with wide eyes. That's amazing, Dua said. Your people were very wise, Arya. Just then, they saw the rescue ship approaching. But it wasn't alone. The moon creature that had helped them in the base was walking towards them. Hey, little guy, Zara said softly. Thanks for your help earlier. The creature made a purring sound and rubbed against Zara's leg. They all laughed. I think he likes you, Arya said. Maybe he wants to come with us. As the rescue ship landed, Professor Xan and the other scientists rushed out. They looked shocked when they saw the moon creature. Incredible, Professor Xan exclaimed. A new species. This day just keeps getting more amazing. They all boarded the ship, including their new furry friend. As they flew back to Earth, Arya looked out the window. The planet was growing larger, looking more and more like the home she remembered. What happens now? She asked quietly. Professor Xan smiled at her. Well, first, we celebrate. You girls are heroes. But after that, we have a lot of work to do. Dua nodded excitedly. We need to study what happened to the Void Eater. Maybe we can help other creatures like it in the galaxy. And we should explore more of the moon base, Zara added. Who knows what other secrets it might hold? Aria felt a mix of emotions. She was happy they had saved Earth, but she also felt a little sad. She missed her parents and her old life. Seeing her face, Professor Xan put a hand on her shoulder. Aria, I know this isn't the world you remember, but you found new friends here, and you've done something incredible. Your parents would be very proud. Aria smiled, feeling better. You're right, and there's still so much to do, so much to explore. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, Aria saw the green forests and blue oceans. It wasn't exactly like she remembered, but it was still beautiful. And now, it was safe. The ship landed in a large field. A crowd of aliens had gathered, cheering and waving. Aria, Dua, and Zara looked at each other and grinned. Ready for your hero's welcome? Dua asked. Aria took a deep breath and nodded. As they stepped out of the ship, the cheers grew louder. The moon creature bounced along beside them, seeming to enjoy the excitement. Aria looked at her new friends, at the beautiful planet around her, and at the stars above. Her adventure wasn't ending. In many ways, it was just beginning. She thought about the Void Eater, now peaceful, and exploring space. She thought about the possibility of other humans out there in the Crimson Nebula. And she thought about all the new things she could learn and discover in this future world. Aria smiled. The past was gone, but the future was full of possibilities, and she was ready for whatever came next. As the sun set on their first day as heroes, Aria, Dua, and Zara made a promise to each other. They would keep exploring, keep learning, and keep protecting their home, no matter what challenges the universe might bring. The end, or perhaps the beginning.